and welcome to UZ Report World News Broadcasting with me, Davron Jumaev. President Mirziyoyev, for the first time since he took his office, has decided to answer journalists' questions as part of his trip to the Namangan region. He also listed the problems of the city of Namangan, which could not be resolved in a timely manner due to the limited opportunities.
Mirziyoyev said that he considers the media not the force but the first power, which along with the achievements also talks about the shortcomings. Frankly speaking, 50% of internal roads are of poor quality. If we do not put things in order in these issues, then people will not be able to satisfy. Secondly, if we analyze over the past 20 years, the winter in these 2.5 months has become a hard lesson for us. It has revealed that the infrastructure is outdated or even out of order, he added.
President Mirziyoyev, during his trip to the eastern Namangan region on Friday, gave instructions to allocate loans totaling $80.7 million for the development of entrepreneurship. Some $60 million are to be raised from the Reconstruction and Development Fund towards the reconstruction of the heat supply system, improving infrastructure, etc. The region is expected to implement over 1,700 investment projects worth $2.2 billion by the end of the next year. More than 66,000 jobs are to be created. The Namangan region is to receive such a huge amount of funds for the first time in 30 years. If we manage them correctly and effectively, the region will develop faster and people will get jobs, said Mirziyoyev. He ordered to provide employment for 200,000 young people by allocating 17,000 hectares of agricultural land as well as 10,000 women through the organization of cotton clusters of clothing enterprises in each district. The import and export of environmentally hazardous products and waste to Uzbekistan will now be carried out on the basis of environmental certificate. The relevant resolution was adopted by the government. To obtain a certificate, the applicant must apply through the Customs Information System single window or directly to the Environmental Certification Body in the system of the State Committee for Ecology. The Environmental Certification Body analyzes the submitted documents within 1 working day and if the submitted documents are complete, makes a decision on certification of environmentally hazardous products and waste. The new procedure comes into force on May 1, 2021. Uzbekistan is intending to launch the production of Nike and Adidas sneakers. Production is expected to start in the fourth quarter of 2021. The plant is expected to produce 3 million pairs of sport shoes a year. The land plot of 1 hectare in Asaka district of Andijan region was allocated to Chinese Sinlo International for the plant. The equipment was already delivered and installed. The plant started producing local brand sport shoes for children and adolescents since the fourth quarter of 2020, making 400,000 shoes a month. The foreign investor will spend $12 million for the project with half of the sum already invested. 50% of shoes will be exported to the Central Asian countries, 30% will be exported to other countries. 20% will be sold domestically. According to the recent Speed Test Global Index data, Uzbekistan ranks 94th in the overall rating for the speed of fixed internet, moving up 2 positions. The data download speed is 34.6 megabytes per second.
The indicators of the mobile internet have also improved. At the end of January 2021, the speed of the mobile internet in the Republic was 12.94 megabits per second. Uzbekistan on this indicator rose by 2 points and took 128th place. The fastest mobile internet in the world is in the UAE with 183.3 megabits per second, followed by South Korea and Qatar in third. Singapore is the leader in data download speed at 247.54 megabits per second, followed by Hong Kong and Thailand.
In a bid to promote achievements and new approaches in journalism, Uzbekistan is about to hold the 15th International Competition of Journalism Altyn Kalam. The winners will be announced on May 3rd at the World Press Freedom Day. The preparations are underway at the National Press Center of Uzbekistan.
The competition will be held in 5 media areas: television, radio, print, internet journalism, and for the best material of a foreign journalist about Uzbekistan. Incentive nominations are for the best material on human rights, for the best photo report, and best press service. The jury will be formed from well-known journalists and media experts. The prestige of the competition is gaining momentum. If in 2006, 136 journalists presented 1,669 creative works, Then in 2019, more than 510 creative competitors with 7,500 materials.
Stone Age rock paintings have been discovered on the rocks of the foothill part of Mount Gobdin, located in Bulungur district of Samarkand region. The new site dates back to the Neolithic era. Scientists also collected stone products from flint, shale and sandstones. These materials were once brought here and preceded by primitive people. They are located not far from the already known petroglyphs on the right bank of the Yedimsai River.
35 U.S. Capitol police officers are being investigated for their actions during the January 6th riot at the Capitol, according to a police department statement released Friday, while 6 have been suspended without pay. 5 people, including a Capitol police officer, died in the violence when throngs of former President Donald Trump's supporters attacked the Capitol, overpowering security forces. 2 law enforcement officers later committed suicide. Investigators have been looking into the response by the Capitol police officers and whether any of the officers may have aided the rioters. Just days after the attack, it was disclosed that 2 officers had been suspended, according to Democratic Representative Tim Ryan. One had taken a selfie with a protester, while another wore a Trump-supporting hat and was directing protesters around the building, Ryan told reporters. It was unclear whether the 2 were among the 35 now being investigated, or whether they were trying to quell the crowd by establishing personal contact with rioters. The protesters stormed Capitol Hill shortly after Trump addressed a crowd near the White House, just as lawmakers were preparing to formally certify Joe Biden's election victory. A U.S. House of Representatives panel has scheduled a hearing on February 25th to look into the Capitol security failures. Acting Police Chief Yogananda Pittman and Acting House Sergeant-at-Arms Timothy Blodgett are scheduled to testify.
Clear message to the world. America is back.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Friday vowed to end transactional diplomacy and promote democracy over autocracies, a stark contrast to the foreign policy of his predecessor, Donald Trump.
Our partnerships have endured and grown through the years because they are rooted in the richness of our shared democratic values. They're not transactional.
Speaking after a virtual visit to Europe for the G7 leaders meeting, Biden tried to reestablish the U.S. as a team player following 4 years of Trump's America First policies, ones that angered allies by breaking off global accords.
I know the past few years have strained and tested our transatlantic relationship, but the United States is determined to re-engage with Europe.
And Biden came to play, announcing a $4 billion pledge of support for global coronavirus vaccination efforts, showcasing a nearly $2 trillion spending measure that could bolster both the U.S. and global economies, and re-entering the U.S. into the Paris Climate Accord, which Trump had turned his back on.
We have to rapidly accelerate our commitments to aggressively curb our emissions and to hold one another accountable.
Biden on Friday first joined G7 leaders from Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, and Japan by video conference hosted by British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, a meeting which included the awkward moment familiar to all who work remotely.
In June. Can you hear us, Angela? That's okay, that's all right. I think you need to mute.
After some chuckles, leaders got to work, pledging billions of dollars to a coronavirus vaccination program for poorer countries. They discussed countering China's non-market-oriented policies, as well as challenges ranging from cybersecurity to nuclear proliferation. Biden also made clear U.S. commitment to the NATO alliance was unshakable.
The United States is fully committed to our NATO alliance, and I welcome Europe's growing investment in the military capabilities that enable our shared defense.
A statement again at odds with Trump, who called the NATO alliance outdated and had at one point suggested Washington could withdraw.
Read one line, gave me a chill. I didn't have to read anything else in the book.
With little time to waste and a sermon blaring on the radio, Chuck Pryor got back to what's become relentless work.
We spread ourselves too thin.
Pryor is the director of this small Houston funeral home, and ever since the global pandemic came to Texas, a state hit hard by COVID-19, the phone has not stopped ringing. Pryor himself is often answering the call and driving to pick up the body of yet another victim of the disease as the nation's coronavirus death toll approaches the 500,000 mark.
Exhausted. Overwhelmed.
Pryor says the number of deaths his funeral home handled in 2020 were more than double what he would see in a normal year. So far, 2021 hasn't been any easier. As deaths have mounted in the winter months, overloaded hospitals want bodies removed quickly.
It's a huge risk for the employees, especially those that's transporting the deceased.
Pryor's staff is feeling the strain, and over the past year, some exhausted workers at Priority Funeral Experience quit, while others fell ill.
One of my good guys at the beginning of the pandemic, he died in April, just wasn't feeling good. 2 weeks later, he gone. And his mom died a week before him, and he didn't know his mom died.
Pryor's family has dealt with its own fair share of grief during the pandemic, losing his nephew and uncle and other extended family to COVID-19. But Pryor tries to stay positive, saying he focuses on the present.
I choose to take one day, one person at a time.
Since the ride-along with Pryor, a crippling winter storm has caused days of power outages and water shortages in Houston, straining the ability of hospitals to treat COVID-19 patients and isolating vulnerable communities cut off by frozen roads.
Major U.S. airlines on Friday said they would adopt a voluntary international contact tracing program months after the White House under then-President Donald Trump blocked a mandatory effort. American Airlines, Delta Airlines, Southwest Airlines, United Airlines, and other major airlines said they had committed to collecting contact tracing data from passengers traveling into the United States and to relaying that data to the CDC if travelers provide information. In August, Trump officials rejected an effort to require airlines to collect contact tracing information from U.S.-bound international passengers after some senior administration officials cited privacy concerns. And back in February 2020, airlines protested when the CDC issued an interim final rule requiring them to collect certain data from international passengers, including phone numbers, to help with contact tracing. The rule was never enforced, but airlines argued that they could not provide such information, especially from passengers booking tickets through third-party websites, though airlines backed setting up a website and a mobile application for passengers to send contact information directly to the CDC. The head of the Airline Trade Association Airlines for America, Nick Callio, said airlines were hopeful this new voluntary effort and international passenger testing requirements adopted last month by the CDC will lead policymakers to lift travel restrictions. President Joe Biden in January reimposed an entry ban on nearly all non-U.S. travelers who have recently been in Brazil, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and 26 countries in Europe that allow travel across open borders, a ban Trump had sought to end days before leaving office. Biden quickly added South Africa to the list. There is, however, no immediate indication the CDC will move quickly to drop these restrictions, some of which have been in place for almost a year.
Stocks barely budged on Wall Street, ending Friday mixed. The great rotation advanced as investors bet on an economic recovery. They sold tech shares that have rallied throughout the health crisis like Facebook and Netflix, and bought Deere, Caterpillar, and other economically sensitive cyclical stocks. Mercadian Asset Management President Ken Kamen says investors should take some profit on tech stocks and invest more in value and cyclical stocks.
It's not that we are abandoning growth or I'm suggesting people shouldn't, but I think it's time to pare that out. I mean, the market's just doing so well, and a lot of these growth stocks are priced for more than perfection.
The Dow and NASDAQ finished flat, while the S&P 500 slipped 0.2%. For the week, only the Dow managed to eke out a gain. Among the top movers on the NASDAQ and S&P Friday, Applied Materials rising 5%. The chip equipment maker forecasts second quarter revenue that topped expectations. A global shortage of semiconductors has spurred demand for its manufacturing tools. Shares of Deere jumped nearly 10%. The world's largest maker of farm equipment upgraded its earnings forecast after quarterly profit more than doubled. Higher commodity prices and rising exports have boosted demand for its machines. Bank of America said Friday it expects stocks to pull back more than 10%. Equities are trading at the most expensive prices since the dot-com bubble of the 1990s.
These were the top headlines for today. Stay safe and goodbye.